Is there, I guess this is a thought experiment, is there really a market? Would people, if they knew whatever service they were procuring was really secure versus a service that is just dirt cheap because it's been kludged together, would they actually buy the service that is really secure over the one that is dirt cheap?
The answer to that is most likely no. That's the other side of the equation, is the people that are purchasing the things don't really care about security. They're probably anti-security, at least in practice. I want a secure thing that does a thing securely. Whatever it is the thing does, it better do it securely. Well, that's cool. I can slap a sticker on the side that says secure, and they're happy with it. Let's just, for the sake of an argument, go, at the time that we put this thing in a box and shipped it to you, there was no known vulnerabilities. And you'll notice there's a key word in that phrase, no known vulnerabilities. We did testing. We couldn't find anything. So great. Okay, I trust you. It says secure, then it's secure.
Hello everyone, this is your host Manoj Tandon. Welcome to another episode of Dark Rhino Security's Security Confidential. Today we have another awesome guest, but before I announce him, please hit the like and subscribe button. We need a little love. The algorithms, we all work for them, and it allows us to keep bringing you this great content. So please do that. And then without further ado, let me introduce you to a great guest who has over 20 years of hands-on experience, actually more than that, I'm going to say. And it is Mr. Daniel Lowry. He is joining us today. And if you look at his background and history, he started when there were things called workstations, and we'll talk about that. Okay. And he has been into ethical hacking, security training. He's inspired by some of my favorite movies, War Games and Sneakers, to name a few, and we'll get into that. And, he's built a long career of breaking into systems ethically and teaching everyone else how it works. This is going to be a great conversation. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Manoj. It's really exciting. I love doing stuff like this. I love talking about anything technology-wise. Of course, the training aspects of it, like you said, I've done it for a very long time. It's so much fun to be able to talk with people and hear their stories about how my training was, helpful to them into getting into cyber.
See, that's meaningful work because you actually impacted another life in a positive way.
Yeah, and then
what can you do that's more than that?
It's crazy because some people will be like, I was delivering pizzas and I didn't have two sticks to rub together, but I got through my whatever, maybe through vet tech or whatever the case was, where they got access to some training. And we tried to make it really affordable so that people would not have a barrier of price to their success. And they said, I just kept going. I just kept watching. It was really fun and it was enjoyable. And then I got that first cert, and then I got my first job, and then now I had money and I could continue to watch, and I got more certs, and my job role increased. And I told people I did everything you told me to do, and I did it, and it worked. So I think, some people tell me I took chemo while I was watching your show. That was what I did to pass the time. So you meet people and they feel like they know you personally because they spent some really interesting times in their lives with you on their screen. So I love that. I love that I got to be a part of that. And I really enjoy hearing those stories. So yeah, I wouldn't have traded that time for the world, man.
So give us a little bit on your background. We were talking a little before this recording, but give us your dossier, if you will. How did you get sucked into this black hole called cybersecurity?
How far back do you want me to go?
Oh, back to the TI-99 days. Like what was the beginning of this, and I bring this up because I'll set the context for this. I personally, this is just my opinion, not Dark Rhino Security's opinion, but my opinion that if you can light the spark in someone on any subject, doesn't matter what it is, whether you like music, you like computers, you like healthcare, whatever it is, if that spark is lit, that person is going to do amazing things that they didn't even think were possible. And something lit the spark in you. And that's what I want to know. What was that? What happened? And how did you get so good?
Yeah, it's funny. Kind of like you said, a TI-99 was my first computer back in the early 80s. I think I got it in 83, 84, somewhere around there. And it was really, it was just interesting. And at that time, and as you recall, technology in the home was very new for like the average everyday person. And
Oh
I grew up
yeah.
very poor. My dad was a truck driver, and so for the way we got that TI-91 is he worked for Zenith. They were, an electronics manufacturer, and he delivered things for them. He was a delivery truck driver, and they gave him a TI-99. It's hey man, here, take one of these. That's kind of how it went.
Wow.
So he came, yeah, he just showed up and was like, "Look what I got!" And then we plugged it in, we got it to work, and I'm just like, I never wanted to leave it. I just want to sit there and mess with it and plug it was cartridge based. You plug these cartridges in it and you got the keyboard that's built into the computer, and you had a TV as a monitor. You didn't have monitors, you had a television. So you get that all plugged in. And that's where I started learning how to play video games because, the Ataris were out, but we didn't have one of those. So that was kind of cool. And then from there, as I grew, I was always that kid who wanted to take stuff apart and see what was like, what's inside of this? What's going on in here? I don't know what all this is, but it looks cool. It just spoke to me. Right? Electronics just always kind of spoke to me. And then, fast forward to I start to become like an early teenager, mid teenager, and online becomes the thing when I'm about 15, 16. And even before that, yeah, dial-up modems where you could connect to
I
each
was
other
gonna
that
say, yeah,
way.
that's like the dial-up era, man. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, even before we were really getting online with each other, bulletin board systems and IRC, that kind of stuff. That just precursor before the quote unquote internet came out was where I was kind of hanging out and making friends. I had friends at school and they had computers, so we would dial in together and hang out in IRC and have fun doing that stuff and have bulletin board systems. My friend Don, he had a sheet of paper that had every he ran his own bulletin board system, and when the internet came out, he had a sheet of paper that had every website written down on it.
oh my
Like
God.
that, yeah, on a
Talk
single
about the
college.
that has to be the oldest version of DNS that there ever was.
Yes, yes. He basically had manual DNS.
The manual DNS, man. I mean, wow. He
Yeah,
wrote it on one page.
he did. He wrote it on one page. Obviously, that grew very quickly and very crazily, but
By
that's
the
where it
way,
kind of
side note
began.
on that, a bit of trivia for you. Since you said one page, it reminded me, do you know that the United States, the very first budget that was ever done by George Washington, was written on one page?
It was like military infrastructure. What else do we need? Let's sign this, boys, to call it a day.
Yeah, that's. But I sidetrack you. But when you said it, you could get. I think about that. How mind-boggling it would be to try and catalog the World Wide Web now, and he'd had it on a single page. But please keep going.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about, isn't it? I remember going to a bookstore and they had printed like basically a phone book of all the web pages that you could buy, so that you could this was before Google, right? This was before Yahoo and Alta
Yeah.
Vista and all those that the search engines before that came out and then was really a thing. And you could flip through and go, oh, I'm looking for a website on a certain topic, and you would just flip to that topic, and then you'd have all those websites, and that was how we did it. Or you just knew somebody. And then of course the idea of hacking. So this is where the movies kind of come in. They introduced me to the idea that you could manipulate these systems, you could change them, you could work with them. They were kind of like secret code of the illuminated ones that only knew how these things work. And I was like, I want to know that. That's really interesting. So that really captured my imagination. You were talking about the spark, all these movies. Obviously, it's Hollywood in a lot of ways, but it did a great job of sparking many people's imaginations.
Absolutely. And, those movies never got into details, but some of that stuff you could conceivably do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you
You
think
know,
of War Games. War Games is actually fairly accurate. If you're thinking just about the war dialing stuff that he was doing from his bedroom, where he had a modem. You put the phone on it. It had a dialer. I don't know how many people out there that have actually are still around that have played with a war dialer. It's a lot of fun. It really got interesting when Star 69 became a thing and you could recall the last, or like caller ID. That kind of put the end of the fun of that.
Yeah.
You know, but it was a really cool thing to be able to go, there's another computer at the end of this number, and you could write that down and go, okay, now these things can talk. And there was no real security. That's how we see things nowadays. It's how if you just look at the history of security, it's always done is better than perfect. Make a system that works. We all get addicted to it. And then it's like, oh no, now there's people out there that are learning how these systems work, and they're like abusing that. We need to go back and bolt on some security. It's like, if you'd have just like, we should have learned from the past by now that if we just go in with security in mind,
but
that would
you
be
know,
better.
And Daniel, you know what? You're absolutely right. But when you add the context to how we got to where we were, it's almost impossible that would have happened, because you remember the whole concept behind DARPANet. Before Al Gore reinvented.
Oh yeah, back then.
Yeah,
you could have never predicted that would have been the thing.
That would
but
be the
now,
case.
Systems now they should know better. That's what I meant.
They should know better, and there's some fundamental changes that could be made. It would upset a lot of people if you did them.
Yeah.
But you could do some fundamental things that would greatly improve the security of things like email and whatnot if people wanted to throw those switches, and they don't. But back then, when we had the World Wide Web was coming into existence, the whole thing was, if there's a nuclear war, the message must get through. So The idea of security, it was like, at that point, it doesn't matter. Everything's glowing in the dark. So,
yeah. We're cooked, literally.
We're cooked. So make sure the message goes so we can hit the other guys back. At least that's our dying wish, that we...
Yeah, if I can't have the world, neither can you.
Neither can you, right? And there was no concept of security in that.
No. It just, like you said, it just needed to go and make sure that we had communications that were fast enough to beat any attack.
That's exactly correct.
We were aware. Yeah, it was a really weird time, and probably very scary, especially for the people that grew up through the height of the Cold War of the 50s and the missile crisis and everything. So I can imagine there was a lot of scared people on what could be possible. So it was cool that sparked the beginning of the internet and created these connected networks and these systems, because it gave us such a cool playground to be able to mess around with. And of course, I was mentioning things like IRC and bulletin board systems and war dialing and things of that nature. And I can remember when if there was a remote system that needed remote administration, it was just Telnet and passwords. Yeah. Who's going to see it, right? I don't need a password, or it's like a really junky password, and it's all in clear text anyway. So you just got to start looking at packets on. Anyway.
I remember back that, in college, we could Telnet over to NASA Langley. We did work with them. And it was just that, Telnet, IP address. There was no password. I was like, well, we're inside now. Let's see where we can go. But what was the first hack that you encountered? I mean, and I'll tell you, mine was the phone system one, where you could get long distance for free. That was the first hack that I came upon. What was your first?
My first really real hack. Let me think here. So probably blue screen of death, like the ping of death on people.
Yeah.
Like doing that oversized packets, and then the TCP IP stack is like, what is this? I don't know what to do, because I'm Windows and I'm going to fall over now because this is crazy talk. And so we would do that. I worked so I was like 18 or 19. I was working at a hospital, and that was something, you start digging into things, and it's like, oh, that's fun. So I would start ping and deathing my friends on the LAN. And they're like, what's going on your computer? I'm like, oh man, that's too bad. Windows, right? And then we had what was the NetSend? Remember NetSend?
I remember NetSend.
The command in Windows. So we all spent a lot of time in chat rooms at that time because chat rooms were very popular in the late
Yes, they
90s.
were.
And this one guy that was in our crew, he was the dude that was kind of the odd man out. He was all right guy. We didn't dislike him, but he was a little weird for us. And he always, so we kind of picked on him a little bit. And he was into the chat rooms and he was always trying to, find an online girlfriend. And
Well, this
I
is a tale
shoulder,
as old as time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I shoulder surfed him. Actually, you just made me think I've actually been hacking longer than that. Anyway, I shoulder surfed him on who he was talking with, and I started sending him net send messages that were very ambiguous, but leaned toward the idea that he had said something inappropriate. And he's like, I don't know what she's thinking I said. And he's like, upset. He's like, can you guys help me with this? We're like, oh man, you done messed up. I think you got hacked, bro. I think you've been hacked and somebody's using your account. This is not good. This is not, you're going to jail. So we would mess with him like that and then let him off the hook. But honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, my first hacks were probably in middle school, like 6th grade, where the girls in my school, it was a note network. The girls would write notes about the boys they liked and the things they were doing, and they would pass them back and forth. And of course, they would get them and put them in their lockers. So I would walk by every time the bell rang. I would walk by a locker that I wanted to get into, and I would get one number. I would shoulder surf one number.
Oh,
And then the next bell, I would shoulder surf another number. That way I wasn't like leering too long, and I would at least get the 3 numbers and then try every combination, which didn't take too long. And I could break into lockers, steal the notes, copy them, put them back. So, and then I would break into like our sports equipment locker during PE because there was really good sports equipment and there was really not good sports equipment, and I wanted the good stuff. So I would pick the lock to get in the door where the sports equipment was, steal the football or basketball or whatever that was really good, and I would hide it in the trash can.
there you go.
The coach would go in, start throwing balls out. Right, there you go, guys. There you go. And you see the upperclassmen looking for the good stuff, and they're bypassing everything else because they're waiting for the stuff they wanted, not knowing it's not coming out of that closet. It's already out.
Yeah, that's already out. It's already out in play too.
It was,
that's
so
hilarious.
I was physical security testing many things.
Those principles still apply today. If you're using a keypad, you don't want somebody peering over your shoulder. Although some of those, like everyone, you walk into an apartment building and they got the keypads and whatnot. Those things are so easy to bypass. I mean, people knew how easy it was. Their sense of security. Well, I live in a gated community. I'm like, come on, really? I mean, okay, you do.
You're just lucky the illusion of security. That's what we like.
That is such a good word. It is the illusion of security. Now, we'll get into that. I'm going to pin that one because we're going to come back to that topic. Switching gears a little bit in helping, like when you look at today, fast forwarding to now from 1984, somebody wants to get into cyber. What would you suggest is their path forward? What might be the best approach?
That's a great question. I get that question a lot because I've helped a lot of people do that. And what's funny is I started being the path. That's where I started at. I was the path to get into cyber because I made training. So it was like, then people started asking me, what do I think is the best way to get into cyber? And that became a much more interesting story because the answer is it absolutely positively depends on what you want to do. Now, there are some foundations. There's also some edge cases and a lot of people love to use edge cases like they're the norm, but they don't understand that's not how you formulate statistic probability. You want to say, well, generally this is how this works. And the edge cases, when you're looking at the bell curve, anyway, you tend to see patterns, right? Now, if I'm looking at my career throughout the history and I'm looking at the people I've helped and hearing their stories, the general consensus has been, and for good reason, is that you got to start somewhere. You can't start cyber careers in the middle and go, I'm just going to start pen testing today. You're going to have a lot of backfilling. You can do it. It's just a really weird way about doing it. So it's possible it's just not efficient, right? The most efficient way is to start at the basics, start with those foundations. I need to understand how operating systems work. I need to understand networking works. I need to understand those basics of cybersecurity, of like, what is CI? What is security? What do we mean when we say security for data? And why is that important, right? So once you start to understand these concepts, now the things start to make sense. That if I go, hey, you know, because I get questions, right? And here's it with some actual meat on the bone. I'll do like a YouTube video or something on, hey, I'm gonna do a CTF, or I'm gonna try this new C2, or do something like that. I'm gonna mess around with Metasploit, and somebody will send me a message and go, hey, I'm trying this and I'm not getting the session. Why not? I don't know. Is your network working? Do you even have networking capabilities between yourself and the target? Have you started the fundamental networks? You can't just come in and give me a very generic question like, I'm not getting a session. There's 1,000 different reasons why you might not be getting a session. You have to know enough about how the operating systems work. Did you use the right architecture when you created the implant from Metasploit framework? Like that right there could stop you, even if it does have networking. But understanding hardware fundamentals and operating system fundamentals, and then of course the networking and all this stuff, if you don't know how those things work, you could easily go, well, I'll just try what I saw on the screen and it didn't work and I don't know why. So you got to get those foundations under your belts. We were kind of talking about this earlier. I also typically recommend to start at the very beginning of your career. If you're fresh to IT in general, just pick up a scripting language. Like, let that be even Bash or PowerShell or Python, whatever you're most comfortable with as far as your operating system goes. Pick up the fundamentals of writing a script that does something for you. That's going to pay off in dividends as you move on down the road. I'm not saying go out and become a full stack developer, learn C and C++ or assembly or everything. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be like a MySQL database connecting with this front end. And that's not what I'm trying to say. That's later in life. At the very beginning though, but understand those fundamentals of programming, just what logic is, right? How that works, what's a variable, how that works. How do I take in input from the end user? Just the simple basic things that make your life a whole lot easier, because then you can start to automate things and you'll understand when you see something. You might not know the code itself, but you'll get a vague idea of how that works. Well, I know how to take input. I know what that looks like. I know what the computer is doing with that computationally on the other end. It's grabbing this information from the end user. It's putting it up into memory. It's processing that based off of the logic that has been on the back end on the code. I don't necessarily know the syntax and all that's going on there, but I get the understanding of what's happening there. And then now when you move up, you're ready to shift gears up into cybersecurity. All that stuff is going to make a whole lot more sense, because I did a few things backwards because I thought, man, I'm just going to run to the finish line and I'm going to skip a few hurdles here. But then I realized I got to backtrack and touch the bases, right? Because when I got into web app pen testing, I'm like, I have no idea how this stuff works. So I had to learn about HTTP and verbs or methods, and then of course APIs, and how does Python make a website? What's PHP? What's JavaScript? What's HTML? I don't understand how cross-site scripting works because I don't understand JavaScript, right? So got to go back and backfill that knowledge. So as you move on and you start to continue to hit each step on your career, again, these are general ideas, general steps that I have seen tried and true work.
So you should really get into first learning fundamentals, and that
you nailed it. Yes.
And that was my comment to you earlier before we did the taping was, if I was looking for vulnerabilities, I would want to, that didn't sound right. I would want to understand foundational architecture first, because that's where you're going to find the flaws, where you want to go looking, gaps, things that might be exploitable.
Exactly.
Which brings me to a question. Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to tail on that, and then we'll go to your next question. If you go look at security research, people that are finding new vulnerabilities, getting CVEs, and things of that nature, even when it's something simple like an IDOR or a command injection on a website, right? And if you're new, don't worry. Those are the those are the baby steps that you get into web app. A lot of times they find that from looking at the code. They don't necessarily do it from DAST testing where they're dynamically, the application is running and they're poking at it. Sometimes it's that way, but a lot of times it's an open source project and they look at the code on the back end and go, we're pretty sure, or they reverse engineer it with something like Ghidra or IDA Pro, and they look at the code and they go, I'm seeing these jumps and they're not validating that input right there. I have access to this. I bet if I force browse to that, there it is. So a lot of times it can be done that way and is done that way. So don't discount the fact that knowing how to code those things up and how to build those applications will not serve you well. It absolutely will. And if you definitely want to get into being, as we used to say back in the day, elite hacker, those are the skills you're going to want to be. And that's going to set you head and shoulders above your competitors in the job market.
Those people are rare.
Yeah.
You get a lot of tool drivers in the business who know how to use a tool, but they really don't understand what the background is of what's happening there. So therefore, the effectivity gets limited. I guess I'll be polite.
I guess that's why you get big money at Pwn to Own every year,
Yeah, exactly. Very valid point. You look at this problem, and you described it wonderfully. If you want to understand JavaScript, or if it's based on an open source project, you can go look at the source code, find the vulnerability. What about the development life cycle prevents people from catching this stuff while it is being created? And it's almost like, in some perverse way, the hacking community is the ultimate quality assurance engineering team that you have. And why couldn't your regression testing find it? Or what was it?
I think that it's probably a combination of issues. It's not any one single thing. I think there's probably one major contributing factor, and we'll get to that last. But I think that, if you go and look at any developer and you sit down with them and they're looking for bugs, and maybe they do have a really good SDLC where they are trying to bake in security, they're trying to do filtering. It's really hard to know all the things you need to do for every line of code that might be a problem, right? So many times you're just too close to the problem. How many times have you built a tool and then you go back to it 6 months later to take a look at your own code and you go, this might as well be written by somebody else. I have no idea what I was doing here. If you're not doing really, really good commenting of your code to let you know, this is why I did this, and then that flows into that, which we constantly never do. It's like, okay, I got to refigure out this problem and what's going on here. So you could be too close to your own issue. You just don't see it because to you it makes sense. And then somebody else walks over, and this is why pair programming has become such a good and standard kind of practice in development lifecycle at this point, because now I got two sets of eyes looking at it, and that's going to be a whole lot better than just one person. It's their baby. Of course it's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with this code. And so they don't see it. They just don't really have the ability to see it half the time. So you give it to somebody else. You let them go through it, and they immediately go, what's this? Oh, well, it's perfect. That's what it is. Nah, is it? I don't think it is. Yeah, let me go ahead and poke it with a stick. Oh yeah, it fell over. It is dead. You're going to want to fix that. So sometimes we don't get that. And that usually comes from done is better than perfect. We have a product to ship. We've got a deadline to meet. And it's about business meeting their deadlines, meeting their expectations for their customers, their clients, their stockholders, their shareholders, the board, whatever the case is. A lot of times it's, I just need a minimum viable product that does what we said it could do. We made a promise. I know we didn't consult you, dev team, on whether or not that promise was any kind of accurate as to the time frame in which this could be produced, but the promise was made nonetheless. So here's what's up. I need you to bake this cake. I don't care if it falls apart. I mean, how many times have we seen an unveiling of a new technology, and at that unveiling, it did not work at all?
It's happened a few times.
Yeah, more than we'd like. And
Yeah.
that was supposed to be the showcase. That was supposed to be the look at this cool thing. And how many times do customers get a demo of a simulation really and not really the working code? Hey, this is what it's going to look like when it's done. And it's not really the app that we're building quite yet. It's going to be this, but that's not where we're at with the development of it.
Selling PowerPoints,
right?
man. That's another story that's as old as time in this business.
That's it. So I think a lot of it comes from that. Is that A, security is really complex. B, we get a little too close to the problem. And C, you got managers and C-levels that are over your back going, we've got to ship a product because otherwise the business hurts and then you lose your job because we didn't hit the profit margin we were looking to hit. So let's get to work. Let's make something that works. We'll worry about security later. And that kind of takes us back to the beginning of our conversation is we tend to get something that we can get addicted to built, and we'll worry about security later. We'll bolt that on as it comes down the line. And that's why I have 20 different credit monitoring for free.
Yeah. And then that's why we do well as a business, actually. So,
right.
But cybersecurity, then the mindset is that it is not seen as a strategic advantage in the development lifecycle.
Yeah.
How do we change that? Any thoughts on that, Daniel?
Man, buy-in from the people that are actually making the stuff. I think that there's a lot that goes into, them they're trying to probably solve some very complex issues, right? They're trying to build something, it's got a lot of moving parts underneath the hood. Anybody goes and looks at a modern application, you're just like, wow, how many lines of code is this? This is crazy. How many libraries are we importing? How many DLLs are a part of this thing? You're trying to, and you got open source projects that are basically holding the thing all together. It's like Band-Aids holding hands to bridge a gap because, we can use this open source. We'll bake that in and that'll make sure that these two things can connect and work. And so there's a lot of complexity going on to that, which is typically driven by cost as a factor, speed as a factor. Make it as fast as you can and make it cheap so that we can drive profits up. And we got to get buy-in from the C-levels. See, they see security as a cost center.
That's the point. So what about educate? Is there, I guess this is a thought experiment, is there really a market? Would people, if they knew whatever service they were procuring was really secure versus a service that is just dirt cheap because it's been kludged together, would they actually buy the service that is really secure over the one that is dirt cheap?
The answer to that is most likely no. And so going back to the idea of buy-in, that's the other side of the equation, is the people that are purchasing the things don't really care about security. Actually, they're probably anti-security, at least in practice, maybe not in thought. They're like, yes, I want a secure thing that does a thing securely. Whatever it is the thing does, it better do it securely. Well, that's cool. I can slap a sticker on the side that says secure, and they're happy with it. Even if it is at the time I put the sticker on the side, let's just for the sake of an argument go, at the time that we put this thing in a box and shipped it to you, there was no known vulnerabilities. And you'll notice there's a key word in that phrase, no known vulnerabilities. We did testing. We couldn't find anything. So great. Okay, I trust you. It says secure, then it's secure. It's got encryption or something. Cool. Encryption means hackers can't see it because it's encrypted. So you buy the thing, you use the thing, and whether that be a software application or a hardware device, whatever the case is, doesn't really matter. So if anything I've learned from being in workstation support specifically, and then even at systems administration level, is that end users really don't care. They want it secure, but they want it to be easy more. They prefer easy.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Those two things are in constant conflict with each other.
And convenience will win over security every time, personally.
Every time. Every single stinking time. That's why people click links. That's why people, oh yeah, that's going to be cool. It's going to do something easy for me. Why do you think that, smart TVs are like, you could buy a 75-inch TV for $350 now when it used to be $2,000. That would have been $3,000,
Yep.
10 years ago. It's because they're collecting information. They're giving you something very cheaply or even free, depending on whatever it is. But it's collecting a bunch of information. It's advertising that they're selling that. They're making more money giving it to you at a cheap price, which, of course, they're not worrying about security because that's not their game. That's not their strategy for making money. That takes more time. That takes more effort. That means more people. That means we got to increase the price. Less people are going to buy it. Right? That's blowing away their profit model. So we just forget about that until people complain enough that we go, oh, okay, we'll do something about it. New model just came out. Why don't you just go buy that? That doesn't have that flaw in it. It's got different hardware. It's got different software.
Yeah, but it's still got a whole bunch of other flaws. And, and with open source, the way it's ubiquitous in the software development life cycle now.
Yep.
Every flaw that's in open source comes along for the ride every time you start a new project. And to me, I see it. You see it all the time.
Yep.
These open source based, not that open source is bad. I don't even think if it was closed source, you're going to get the same nonsense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, now you've got like open source. It's funny, kind of moving into that conversation, becoming a supply chain vulnerability. A lot. Like NPM and PyPy constantly getting, typo squatted, or they're taking old projects that have been abandoned and reappropriating them for malware and things of that nature. And people are installing it and it's becoming a part of their tech stack. And you're like, hey, what's the software bill of materials on this? Well, we got this app from PyPy. It's like, did we test that? I'm sure it's fine. And you see researchers all the time going, we found 600 vulnerable, we found 45 vulnerable this and vulnerable that, are malicious packages that are in these software repositories, or grabbing images from, Docker, the Docker Hub, or, vulnerable AMIs, and you move into the cloud with that one, right? There's all sorts of stuff that you got to worry about. You're doing, you're running Trivy or Trufflehog or whatever, and looking for vulnerabilities, and your tech stack's there. It's like the supply chain has become such a dangerous ground anymore that, I do not envy the people that are building at this point in time of the work they would need to do to really put some security behind it.
I don't know if you could, Daniel.
That's what I mean.
That to me, I having been in this business for a while now, I don't know that you actually really could pull that off.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah, I think that's a hugely complex problem. You'll never find, you would have to go through that so much code and understand it, and there's so many places for vulnerabilities to occur. And they're not maliciously done. It was just expedient coding at the time.
That's it.
That's all it was. And
now we see it with vibe coding, right? People are vibe coding apps all the time because it's a really good way to become like a single person entrepreneurship, where I can create a dashboard or an app of some kind for you to, do X, Y, or Z. Maybe I'll vibe code an app that lets me order food from the most convenient, delivery system. So it's either DoorDash or Uber Eats or whoever's closest, fastest, cheapest. It gives me that. Yep. I can vibe code that up in a week, and it's probably going to be awesome and full of vulnerabilities.
Thousands.
Yeah.
But you got the app out there. So
I'm making money off of it.
So that brings us to AI. You can't have a cybersecurity conversation without AI anymore. So we're obligated. So let's do this. So
never heard of it.
Never. Oh. With AI now, I kid you what, I don't know Python scripting, but I can tell you with ChatGPT, I have built so much Python scripts and the shit works.
Yeah. It's a force multiplier.
It is a force multiplier. So where are we going with this? Now you look at agentic AI coming in, you got scripting that anybody can do now, thanks to these large-scale LLMs. You can build an app in a week, and then you can proliferate it if it goes viral. what is to be done, or
Oh,
is your best bet just to have a robot that's also layered security on top, and it's just really quickly patching all the holes in the dam? But
you know, maybe it's obviously a difficult question to answer, and if I had the answer to it,
you'd be very
I would
rich.
have so many guitars, it wouldn't even be funny. Right?
Probably
Because
buy
yes,
Fender out.
I would go and purchase Fender as a company and be like, here's what we're doing now. uh, because that is the question, right? That's where we're at. We have this tool now that has the ability to move so quickly, and like this goes back to the people that are running the stuff, right? There, I guarantee there's plenty of people out there that are very invested into building something that is secure, and they are going into that vibe code idea and going, hey, check your own code for injections and things of that nature. Any kind of problem that is normal to this type of application. I want you to do your own SAST and DAST work and verify that and look for those codes, recode it if you find a problem. You can do that. And some people do, but that's not the norm, right? You just got people going, you mean I don't actually need to know Python to build a Python app? I can just go into one of these cool systems like Claude or whatever and say, you are a Python expert.
Yes.
You need to build a Flask application that does X, Y, and Z. And it builds it, and you go, cool, I'm going to test it. It doesn't really work like this. I'm having trouble with the input here. Okay, let me refactor the code. It refactors the code. You try it again. And you just kind of like bounce it back and forth, and it's the coder and you're the navigator. That's really
Exactly.
kind of how it works, right? It's driving the code, but you're over there going, okay, make a left turn, make a right turn. Up ahead,
Yeah.
there's a long straightaway, so really hit the gas. And it knows what to do based off of how you prompt it. But if you never prompt and look for security problems, it doesn't do that.
No, it doesn't. And it
And
doesn't
that's what we
care.
get. So bug bounties, maybe that's a good solution, is that we start preaching more of a bug bounty gospel. And I know that bug bounties got really popular, five or so years ago, 5 to 7 years ago, because people were making a lot of money off of it. And so people flocked to that as kind of a side gig, trying to hope to become the next millionaire bug bounty hunter. But those millionaire bug bounty hunters were kind of the exception, not the rule. A lot of people, you grind out a lot to get a little. I found it to be more useful as a learning tool and as a way to contribute to security at large as an individual. It was a really good double whammy. I was like, cool, I can get some real world experience, hands on with productions stuff, databases, web applications, APIs, all sorts of fun stuff, even hardware stuff that's out there, right? You can get your hands on with that. They have responsible disclosure as well. uh, applications for your phone. There's plenty of different opportunity out there in the bug bounty and responsible disclosure space to be able to build a really good portfolio of work that you've done, hands-on, real experience, and contribute to the overall security. So it's kind of like doing what is that, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like GoFundMe, but for security. Go secure me, right? If everybody contributes, right? And that was kind of the idea behind open source.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to build a tool you can contribute.
That's
And it
right.
makes it better, right? Maybe that's a good way to go.
Have you tried using any of these LLMs saying, all right, you are an expert hacker. I want you
Oh
to
yeah.
go and scan these IP address ranges. And how well do they do?
Yeah, I did it for CTFs. And the thing I realized really quickly was that if it figured out that you were doing a CTF, it would just scour the internet for the answers and give them to you. Right? It would look for walkthroughs and then go, oh, it looks like you're using, the Mr. Robot CTF.
Yeah.
And therefore, the next step is this. And it knew everything to do because it was reading the internet to get the answers. But if I obfuscated that information, I could really quickly get it chasing its tail. So it would do pretty well up until a certain point where it would just be convinced that the next step is to do this. And I'd be like, that step doesn't work. What do I do now? And it would just get into this loop of, well, it must work. That's the next step. I'm like, no, it's not.
No.
You're not thinking broadly enough and creatively enough. So that's where it still struggles. And that, I was doing that probably about a year ago. So it's guaranteed that it's upped its game since then. I should probably try that again and just iteratively kind of do that to see how much better it gets as it goes. But at that time, it wasn't good enough. At least not generally. It could get what the great thing about it is if I got stuck somewhere, I could be like, I'm pretty sure this is the CVE or the path, the attack path, but I'm having trouble figuring out whether or not I'm right. Tell me as much information about this, and then it would maybe fill in a gap that I didn't have knowledge-wise, and I would go, oh, okay. I didn't think about that. And I would go, oh, okay. So it's really good. Again, it's a force multiplier. It makes me better at my job at this point. So,
but it's not a thinking machine, and that's
not yet.
Not yet. And I don't know if it ever will be, because genuine thought is a whole different ballgame. This thing is still using old patterns.
Right. It's using what we've already put out there as far as knowledge. And it's like you said, it's looking for the pattern of, well, where's the gap in what the prompter is telling me, and let me fill in the gap. Here is the step-by-step. So it's really good at doing like research. It's really good at pulling in information and giving it to you so that you can creatively kind of work your way through it. Now, I will tell you, I have used AI successfully on a lot of troubleshooting very complex issues with hardware, software. You try to get down the rabbit hole on doing something complex, and it's like you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and it's going, and it's just not going. You're like, I feel like this should work. Let me go to AI. It's like, hey, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. Deep research this and give me some thoughts. And then if you get really good at prompting it in the right way, then man, I have been able to do so much more because of being able to prompt well and getting better at prompt engineering. That again, it goes back to the whole idea. It's a force multiplier. It makes you so much better at your job and filling out. So I always say what you need to be doing right now is leveraging AI as much as you can, becoming very proficient with it, so that when a CEO or a company is making a decision on whether or not they're going to reduce their workforce in numbers, because AI can fill that, you're not one of them. We need you to run that machine because that's the machine that's making us money. You want to be one of the people that they're like, oh, okay, well, you're the one that makes it work. And that lets me lay off 10 more people and use AI through you. You don't want to be one of those people because they didn't pick up the AI skills necessary to stay employed. So that's kind of where we seem to be at right now. You see Amazon laying off 14,000. They're going to lay off another 16,000.
Microsoft's
layoff in their history. Microsoft's, it's going crazy because, and I'm sure they've got AI models that we don't have access to that are much more adept at things than what we have.
And they don't have the locks on them, probably. Like Correct. We're limited on computational use and whatnot, right?
They're not spending all that money on server farms and AI farms and GPU farms and all that stuff because it's like, oh, it's a nice tool.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. Well, Daniel, we are at the hour, believe it or not. This went by way too fast. I want to at least give you a couple minutes here to tell our audience anything you want them to know about anything you want to plug.
I appreciate it. Well, if you want to hang out with me, I do 2 live streams a week, usually. I do one on Friday mornings at 10 a.m., and I do another one on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. So we call that one, the one on 10 a.m. is Cybercast IRL. The one that's at 9 p.m. is Cybercast After Dark. And we typically have a guest, kind of like what we're doing here, talking about stuff and just 2 people having a conversation about a specific topic. It's a lot of fun. And you have a live chat. You can get in with the chat room and just ask questions. It's kind of a bit of an AMA.
That's awesome.
And we can talk about anything. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing those. I also have a Pen Test Plus course for people that are, I was like, you know what? I haven't done some video training in a while. So I built a Pen Test Plus course. Right now it's with Simply Cyber Academy. So that's at academy.simplycyber.io. And you can go purchase that if you're looking to pass the Pen Test Plus, or you just want to pick up some pen testing skills, whether you're a blue teamer or someone that's looking to get into red team. I've got that available for you. It's a lot of fun. It's really engaging. I try to have fun and have some laughs. It's not voiceover PowerPoint. It's me demoing just about everything I can demo and having a lot of fun doing it and cracking up and making jokes. So hopefully that's something you guys will enjoy.
Thanks. We'll link it up in the show notes too.
Awesome.
So people can go and click on them. But Daniel, it has been a pleasure. This hour went by way too quickly. And if you ever have some free time, please come back.
Absolutely. I had a great time, Manoj. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I'll definitely reach back out. We'll have to do this again.
Sounds great. It's fantastic. It was a lot of fun, and you have a good one, Daniel. Take care.
Right back at you.